Have you ever looked at something so impossible that your brain just refuses to process it? I found a photograph 3 months ago that destroyed everything I thought I knew about my family, and the person staring back at me from that faded Polaroid shouldn't exist, because according to every record, every document, every story I'd ever been told, she died 23 years before I was born. My name is Emma Richardson. I'm 32 years old. I live in a cramped apartment in Portland, Oregon, and until this spring, I thought I understood my life. I work as an archivist at the city library, ironic, considering I've been living inside someone else's carefully constructed archive of lies. My mother, Catherine, is 61, a retired schoolteacher who bakes sourdough on Sundays and never misses her book club. My father left when I was 4. I have exactly 3 memories of him, all of them involving the smell of cigarette smoke and the sound of doors slamming. I'm an only child. Always have been. Or so I thought. The photograph came from my grandmother's estate. Grandma Helen died in February, quietly, in her sleep, the way she did everything. I inherited a single cardboard box of her belongings because my mother didn't want to deal with it. "Just old junk," she said, waving her hand dismissively when I asked if she wanted to look through it first. "Throw out whatever you don't want." I remember the day I opened that box. It was a Saturday afternoon, rain drumming against my window with that particular Pacific Northwest persistence that makes you feel like the sky is crying. I'd made coffee too strong, the way I always do when I'm anxious, and I sat cross-legged on my living room floor, surrounded by the detritus of a woman I barely knew. There were the expected things: a tarnished silver locket, a King James Bible with her name inscribed in fading gold leaf, recipes written in shaky cursive on index cards stained with decades-old grease, costume jewelry that had lost its shine, a quilt square she never finished. And then, wedged between the pages of a 1987 Reader's Digest, I found it. The photograph was small, 3 by 4 inches, the kind that instant cameras used to spit out before digital took over. The colors had faded to that distinctive yellow-orange tint of the early 90s, but the image was clear enough. 3 people stood in front of a house I didn't recognize. My grandmother, looking maybe 40 years old, her dark hair barely touched with gray. A teenage girl, maybe 16 or 17, with my mother's exact nose and my exact eyes. And between them, a little girl who couldn't have been more than 5 years old. She had my face. Not similar. Not reminiscent. My face. The same slightly crooked front tooth I'd had until braces fixed it at age 12. The same widow's peak. The same small mole on her left cheek that I cover with concealer every single morning. My hands started shaking so badly I nearly dropped the photograph. The coffee mug tipped over, spreading a dark stain across my carpet that I didn't even notice until hours later. The house behind them was pale yellow with dark green shutters. There was a tire swing hanging from an oak tree in the yard. The date stamp in the corner, barely visible, read, August 14th, 1993. 1993. I was born in 1993. In March. This photo was taken in August. 5 months after I was born. But I was an only child. I'd never had a sister. My mother had never mentioned another daughter. There were no other children in any of our family albums, no extra place settings at holiday tables, no unexplained absences or mysterious silences that suggested a hidden tragedy. I flipped the photo over with trembling fingers. On the back, in my grandmother's neat schoolteacher handwriting, were 3 words that turned my blood to ice water. Catherine, Emma, Lily. Catherine. My mother. Emma. That was supposed to be me. But Lily. Who the hell was Lily? And why did she have my face? I sat there on my floor, rain still falling outside, coffee seeping into the carpet fibers, and felt something fundamental crack inside my chest. It wasn't just confusion or curiosity. It was deeper than that. It was the specific terror that comes when you realize the foundation you've built your entire life on is constructed of lies. I grabbed my phone with numb fingers and pulled up my birth certificate. I keep scans of everything in cloud storage. Occupational hazard of being an archivist. Born March 15, 1993, Portland General Hospital. Mother, Catherine N. Richardson. Father, David Michael Richardson. 1 child. Single birth. No twin listed. But that little girl in the photograph wasn't just similar to me. She was identical. And she existed 5 months after I was supposedly born. The apartment suddenly felt too small, too quiet. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears, that hollow thudding that sounds like footsteps in an empty house. I did what anyone would do. I called my mother. She answered on the 3rd ring, her voice warm and familiar. "Emma, I was just thinking about you. Did you go through Grandma's things yet?" My throat was so tight I could barely speak. "Mom, I found a photograph." "Oh? Anything interesting?" "It's from 1993. August. You're in it. Grandma's in it. And there are 2 little girls. One of them looks exactly like me." The silence that followed lasted exactly 7 seconds. I know because I counted them, watching the clock on my phone screen, feeling each second stretch into an eternity. When my mother finally spoke, her voice had changed completely. It was flat. Empty. The voice of someone who's been dreading a specific phone call for 32 years. "I need you to come over. Right now. Don't bring the photo. Don't tell anyone you found it. Just come." She hung up before I could respond. I sat there in my destroyed living room, holding an impossible photograph, and realized that everything, absolutely everything, I thought I knew about myself was about to shatter into pieces so small I'd never be able to put them back together. And then I discovered something that made my stomach drop even further. I looked closer at the little girl labeled Emma in the photograph. Really looked. And I noticed something I'd missed in my initial shock. She was wearing a small silver bracelet on her left wrist. I zoomed in with my phone camera, squinting at the pixelated image. There was an engraving. I could just barely make it out. It didn't say Emma. It said Lily. Let me tell you exactly what happened next, because this is where everything I thought I understood about my childhood started unraveling like a thread pulled from a sweater. The drive to my mother's house took 23 minutes. I know because I watched every single minute tick by on the dashboard clock, my knuckles white against the steering wheel. The photograph sat in my passenger seat like a live grenade. I'd brought it despite her instructions. Some part of me needed the physical proof, needed to know I hadn't imagined the whole thing. My mother lives in the same house where I grew up, a modest ranch style in the suburbs of Portland, the kind of neighborhood where people know their neighbors' names and wave from their driveways. Maple trees line the street. In the fall, their leaves turn the color of fire. I used to rake them into piles as a kid and jump in them until my mother would call me inside for hot chocolate. Those memories felt contaminated now. Suspect. She was waiting at the door when I pulled up. She didn't wave, didn't smile, just stood there with her arms crossed, backlit by the porch light even though it was only 4 in the afternoon. The sky had that heavy, gray quality that makes everything look like an old photograph itself. Come inside, she said before I'd even made it up the walkway. The house smelled like it always did, lavender and old books, with an undertone of whatever she'd been baking that morning. But the familiarity of it made me feel sick this time, like I'd walked into a museum exhibit of my own life. We sat at the kitchen table. The same table where I'd done my homework, where we'd eaten countless dinners, where she'd told me about my father leaving and promised me we'd be okay, just the 2 of us. The wood surface had divots and scratches from decades of use. I'd made some of those scratches myself. My mother looked older than she had even a week ago. Or maybe I was just seeing her differently now. "Show me," she said. I slid the photograph across the table. She picked it up with both hands, and I watched her face do something I'd never seen before. It crumpled. That's the only word for it. Like someone had taken a piece of paper and crushed it in their fist. Her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't let them fall. "Where did you find this?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "In Grandma's things. Between the pages of a magazine." I leaned forward, my own hands pressed flat against the table to stop them from shaking. "Mom, who is Lily?" She set the photo down carefully, deliberately, like it might shatter. "Your sister." The words landed like a physical blow. I'd suspected, of course. The moment I saw that face, some part of me knew. But hearing it spoken out loud made it real in a way that turned my stomach inside out. "I don't have a sister." My voice sounded strange to my own ears, high and thin. "I've never had a sister." You never told me." You had a twin, my mother said, and each word seemed to cost her something. You were identical twins. Emma and Lily. Born March 15, 1993, at Portland General Hospital, 4 minutes apart. The kitchen tilted sideways. I gripped the edge of the table. We brought you both home from the hospital, she continued, her gaze fixed on the photograph like she couldn't bear to look at me. You were perfect. Both of you. Tiny and perfect, and you'd cry in harmony with each other. This awful stereo sound that drove your father crazy. She laughed, but it was a broken sound. What happened to her? I managed to ask, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know the answer. My mother's hands started trembling. She clasped them together in her lap. You were 5 months old. August 14th. The same day this photo was taken, actually. Your grandmother came over to watch you both so your father and I could go to a movie. First time we'd been out since you were born. She paused, swallowing hard. We came home early. The movie was terrible. We walked in through the back door and the house was silent. Too silent. Babies aren't supposed to be that quiet. I felt something cold spreading through my chest, a kind of dread that made my lungs feel too small. Lily was in her crib, my mother whispered. She wasn't breathing. Your grandmother was on the phone with 911 screaming. You were in your crib too, just sleeping peacefully, like nothing was wrong. They said it was SIDS. Sudden infant death syndrome. They said it just happens sometimes, that there's nothing anyone could have done. Mom, we buried her 3 days later. Your father left 2 months after that. He couldn't look at you without seeing her. He couldn't be in the house where it happened. And her voice broke completely. I decided you'd never know. That we'd never talk about it. That I'd pack everything away, every photo, every piece of clothing, every toy we'd bought in duplicate, and we'd just move forward. I stared at her, my mind reeling. You erased her. You erased my sister from existence. I was trying to protect you. The words burst out of her like they'd been held back for decades. Every expert, every therapist we saw said the same thing. Don't burden a child with survivor's guilt. Don't make her grow up in the shadow of a ghost. Let her be her own person, not half of a missing set. That wasn't your decision to make. I was on my feet now, the chair scraping against the linoleum. She was my twin. My identical twin. And you just, what? Pretended she never existed. What was I supposed to do, Emma? My mother stood too, tears finally spilling down her cheeks. Tell you about the sister you'd never remember? Make you feel guilty for living? You were a baby. You had no memories of her. I thought I was doing the right thing. The right thing. I felt something hot and acidic rising in my throat. The right thing would have been telling me the truth. Do you have any idea what it feels like to find out your entire life is built on a lie? To discover that half of you is missing and nobody thought you deserved to know. My mother flinched like I'd struck her. I look in the mirror every single day, I continued, my voice shaking with rage I didn't know I had in me. Every single day. And now I'll never be able to see my own reflection without thinking about her. Without wondering what she would have looked like, what kind of person she would have been. You stole that from me. You stole her from me. Emma, please. Where is she buried? The question hung in the air between us. Riverview Cemetery, my mother whispered. Section D, Plot 47. Under a cherry tree. There's a small stone with her name and the dates. I go there on her birthday. Every year. I've never missed one. The image of my mother sitting alone at a grave I'd never known existed, mourning a daughter I'd never been told about, should have made me feel sympathy. Should have softened the anger burning through my veins. It didn't. I need to leave, I said, grabbing the photograph from the table. Emma, wait. Don't. I held up my hand. Just don't. I can't even look at you right now. I walked out of that kitchen, out of that house full of lies and lavender and carefully constructed silences. My mother called after me, but I didn't turn around. I sat in my car in her driveway for 10 minutes, gripping the steering wheel and trying to remember how to breathe. The photograph was clutched in my other hand, that little girl with my face and her own name staring up at me from 3 decades ago. And I thought, what else don't I know? What other secrets has my family buried along with my sister? That's when I remembered the bracelet. The one with Lily's name engraved on it. If she died as a baby, Where did that bracelet go? And more importantly, if I could find it, what else might I find with it? The Riverview Cemetery sits on the east side of Portland, 47 acres of rolling hills and oak trees that have been standing since before Oregon became a state. I'd driven past it hundreds of times in my life, never knowing that part of me was buried there. I went the next morning. Sunday. The kind of gray, misty dawn that makes the Pacific Northwest feel like it exists in a different dimension, somewhere between the real world and a watercolor painting. Section D was near the back, away from the main road. Older graves, mostly headstones from the 60s and 70s, their engravings softened by decades of rain. The cherry tree my mother mentioned stood exactly where she said it would, its branches bare this time of year, but beautiful in that skeletal way winter trees have. The headstone was small. Simple gray granite, maybe 12 inches tall. I had to kneel in the wet grass to read it clearly. Lily Marie Richardson, March 15, 1993 to August 14, 1993, forever our angel. 5 months. My sister lived for 5 months, and I'd spent 32 years not knowing she existed. I sat there in the damp grass, my jeans soaking through, and tried to feel something. Connection, maybe. Recognition. The phantom sensation that psychologists talk about when they discuss twin bonds. I felt nothing. Just cold and empty and cheated. I'm sorry, I whispered to the stone, though I didn't know what I was apologizing for. For living? For not remembering her? For being the one our mother chose to keep in her life while Lily got erased? My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. Please call me. We need to talk. I deleted it. Another buzz. There are things you don't understand. I turned the phone off completely. I stayed at that grave for 2 hours, running my fingers over Lily's name carved into stone, trying to reconcile this tangible proof with the complete absence of her in my life. Someone had been here recently. There were fresh flowers in the small vase mounted to the headstone. Pink carnations. Our mother's favorite. The thought made my chest tight with something between rage and grief. She'd been coming here for 32 years. Mourning in private. Keeping her grief locked away in this 47-acre secret while she baked bread and attended book clubs and pretended everything was fine. How do you do that? How do you carry that kind of loss and never let it show? I pulled out the photograph I'd been carrying in my jacket pocket. In the daylight, I could see more details I'd missed before. The yellow house with green shutters. The tire swing. My grandmother's hand resting on teenage Catherine's shoulder. And those 2 little girls, Emma and Lily, 4 months old, identical and perfect. That's when I noticed something else. Something that made my blood run cold. In the photograph, the little girl labeled Emma, the one who was supposed to be me, was holding a stuffed rabbit. Gray, flop-eared, with a pink nose. I had that rabbit. It was in a box in my closet, one of the few things I'd kept from my childhood. My mother told me it had been mine since I was a baby, my favorite toy that I'd carried everywhere until the fur wore thin. But if that was Emma holding it in the photograph, and Emma was supposed to be me, then why did I have the bracelet with Lily's name? Unless... No, that was insane. But once the thought entered my head, I couldn't shake it. What if the wrong twin died? What if I was Lily? I stood up so fast I nearly tripped over the headstone. My heart was pounding like I'd run a marathon. This was crazy. Paranoid. The kind of thing you think when you're tired and grieving and your entire world has been turned upside down in less than 24 hours. Except there was the bracelet in the photograph. And there was the rabbit I still owned. And there was the fact that my mother had lied about everything else. Why wouldn't she lie about which daughter survived? I needed proof. Real proof. Something more than gut instinct and circumstantial details. I drove straight to my apartment, ignoring 3 more texts from my mother, and tore through my closet until I found the box of childhood things I'd been meaning to organize for years. Photos, report cards, old drawings, and there, wrapped in tissue paper, the gray rabbit. I turned it over in my hands, looking for, what? A name tag? Evidence? That's when I found the small tear in the seam along the rabbit's back. Not recent. It looked old, carefully sewn shut with white thread that didn't quite match the original stitching. My hands shook as I used a seam ripper from my sewing kit to open it. Inside the stuffing, my fingers touched something hard. Something metal. I pulled it out. A small silver bracelet, sized for a baby's wrist, with an engraving that caught the light. Emma. I dropped the rabbit like it had burned me. The bracelet hit the floor with a small metallic sound that seemed impossibly loud in my silent apartment. If Emma's bracelet was hidden inside the rabbit, and I had the rabbit, and the girl holding the rabbit in the photograph was labeled Emma, then who was buried in that cemetery? And who the hell was I? I called my mother. She answered on the first ring, her voice desperate. Emma, please. My name isn't Emma, is it? Silence. Long and heavy and confirming. Is it? I demanded, my voice breaking. My name isn't Emma. You buried Emma. And you kept Lily. You kept me. And you lied about it for 32 years. You don't understand. Then make me understand. I was shouting now, tears streaming down my face. Tell me the truth. For once in your goddamn life, tell me the truth. I heard her sob on the other end of the line. When she finally spoke, her voice was so small I almost didn't hear it. I couldn't lose both of you. The words hung there, horrible and honest. Emma was the one who died, my mother whispered. And I couldn't bear for anyone to know. Your father was already gone. Your grandmother was drowning in guilt because it happened on her watch. And I couldn't face everyone knowing that I'd lost Emma. My firstborn. The one I'd named after my grandmother. So you switched us. My voice sounded dead even to my own ears. I switched your bracelets. Buried her with Lily's name. And I told myself it didn't matter because you were too young to know the difference. You were both my daughters. Both loved. What difference did a name make? What difference did a name make? I repeated incredulously. You stole my identity. You made me grow up as someone I wasn't. You let me mourn the wrong sister at the wrong grave. I never meant. I don't care what you meant. I screamed. I care what you did. And what you did was erase me. The real me. Lily died too, Mom. You just buried her alive instead. I hung up. My apartment felt like it was closing in on me, the walls pressing closer with each breath. I looked at my hands I'd thought were Emma's hands, but were actually Lily's hands. I looked in the mirror and saw a face I didn't recognize anymore. Not because it had changed, but because I finally understood what I was looking at. The ghost of a girl my mother couldn't bear to lose. The replacement daughter. The lie that had been living my sister's life for 3 decades. I sank to the floor, the 2 bracelets scattered beside me, Emma and Lily, the names of 2 dead girls. Because Emma was buried and Lily had never been allowed to exist. And I was neither. I was just whoever my mother had needed me to be to fill the hole my sister left behind. I thought I was having an identity crisis before. I had no idea how much worse it could get. 3 days passed in a blur of sleepless nights and unanswered phone calls. My mother tried everything, texts, voicemails, even showing up at my apartment building until my neighbor complained about a woman crying in the lobby. I didn't answer. Didn't let her in. Didn't want to hear more excuses for the inexcusable. I called in sick to work. Sat on my couch staring at the 2 bracelets I'd laid out on my coffee table like evidence at a crime scene. Emma. Lily. 2 names that should have belonged to 2 different people, but instead belonged to no one at all. On the 4th day, I did something I'd never done before. I went through every box, every drawer, every corner of my apartment looking for proof of who I actually was. Birth certificate, useless. It said Emma. Social security card, same lie. Childhood photos, all labeled Emma in my mother's careful handwriting. But then I found my baby book. The one my mother had supposedly kept with all my firsts. First smile, first word, first steps. I'd looked through it maybe twice in my entire life, always feeling vaguely uncomfortable with the whole thing without knowing why. This time I read it differently, looking for cracks in the narrative. And I found them. The entry stopped abruptly on August 10th, 1993. For days before Lily, before Emma died. My mother had written, Emma smiled at her sister today. They held hands in the crib. I've never seen anything so beautiful. The next entry wasn't until September 23rd. More than a month later. The handwriting looked different. Shakier. Emma is doing well. She started sleeping through the night. The doctor says she's developing normally. But it wasn't the words that caught my attention. It was what was underneath them. I held the page up to the light and saw the faint impressions of erased pencil marks. Someone had written something, erased it, and written over it. I grabbed a pencil and lightly shaded over the page, an old trick I'd learned in archival work to reveal erased text. The original words appeared like ghosts. Lily is doing well. She started sleeping through the night. My mother had written Lily's name first, then erased it, changed it to Emma. That's when I realized the full scope of what she'd done. She hadn't just switched the bracelets at the funeral. She'd convinced herself of the lie, written it into existence, made Emma's life into my life, retroactively, erasing Lily from every record, every memory, every moment. I sat there holding that baby book, and something inside me finally broke in a way that felt less like shattering and more like waking up. I called her. This time, I didn't yell. My voice was calm, cold. The voice of someone who'd spent 3 days excavating the ruins of their own identity and had found nothing but lies at the bottom. She answered immediately. Emma, thank God. Stop calling me that. Silence. My name is Lily, I continued. You can deny it, you can explain it, you can rationalize it however you want. But I know the truth now. I found the baby book. I found where you erased my name and wrote hers instead. Sweetheart, please? No. The word came out like a door slamming. You don't get to, sweetheart, me. You don't get to pretend this is something we can hug our way through. You stole my entire identity. You made me live my dead sister's life because you couldn't handle the truth of which daughter you lost. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like, Mom? I stood up, pacing my apartment with the phone pressed to my ear. Tell me. Make me understand how a mother looks at her surviving child and decides that child needs to stop existing. That she needs to become someone else. Someone dead. I heard her crying. Part of me wanted to feel guilty for causing that pain. But that part was smaller than the rage. I was drowning, she whispered. Your father had left. My mother was falling apart. The house was full of matching everything, 2 cribs, 2 high chairs, 2 of every single thing. And every time I looked at you, I saw her too. Saw both of you. And I couldn't. She broke off, sobbing. So you decided to keep Emma, I finished for her. The firstborn. The one named after your grandmother. The one whose death you couldn't accept. So you just reassigned me. Made me her. Problem solved. I thought I was protecting you, my mother said, her voice raw. I thought if you grew up as Emma, you wouldn't have to carry the burden of being the one who survived. You wouldn't have to grow up knowing your sister died and you didn't. But I am the one who survived. The words exploded out of me. That's exactly what I am. You can't change that by changing my name. Emma died, Mom. She died and I lived, and you've spent 32 years trying to reverse that reality because you couldn't accept it. I know. Her voice was so small. God, Emma, Lily, I know. I've known it was wrong every single day. But I didn't know how to stop. I didn't know how to tell you. And then years passed and decades passed, and it felt like it was too late too. It's been too late for 32 years, I interrupted. The right time to tell me the truth was before you buried my sister with my name on her gravestone. The right time was before you let me spend my entire life being someone I'm not. The silence that followed felt different. Heavier. I need you to do something for me, I said, my voice steadier now. I need you to fix this. Legally. I want my real name back. I want my birth certificate corrected. I want Emma's grave to say Emma, not Lily. I want every document, every record, every piece of paper that says I'm Emma Richardson to be changed to Lily Richardson. That's complicated. It could take months, maybe years. And people will ask questions. Let them ask, I said. I'm done living in your lie. I'm done being the daughter you wanted instead of the daughter you got. Emma is dead. She's been dead since 1993. And it's time you buried the right person. My mother was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was broken but clear. Okay, I'll do it. I'll fix everything. I'll tell the truth. Good. I should have felt satisfied. Vindicated. Instead, I just felt empty. There's one more thing, I added. I need space. Real space. I don't want to see you or talk to you until this is fixed. Until my real name is on my birth certificate and my sister's real name is on her grave. Until the truth is documented and legal and undeniable. Can you do that? Yes. She was crying again. Whatever you need. I'll do whatever you need. Then goodbye, Catherine. I used her first name deliberately. Coldly. The way you'd address a stranger. I hung up. I stood in my apartment, in the silence that followed, and felt something shift inside me. It wasn't peace. It wasn't forgiveness. It was decision. The kind that changes the shape of your life. I was going to take my identity back. All of it. Not the one my mother had given me, but the one I should have had from the beginning. I was going to become Lily. Fully. Completely. Legally. And I was going to let Emma rest. For the first time in 32 years, I was going to let us both be exactly who we were supposed to be. One living sister and one dead one. No more pretending. No more lies. Just the brutal, painful, necessary truth. The legal process of changing your identity back to your actual birth identity is, ironically, harder than you'd think. I learned this over the next 6 weeks as I navigated a bureaucratic nightmare that seemed designed specifically to punish people for wanting to exist as themselves. I hired a lawyer. Susan Chin, mid-40s, sharp-eyed and practical. She sat across from me in her downtown Portland office and listened to my story without interrupting once. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "This is complicated," she finally said. "Not legally impossible, but complicated. Your mother will need to provide a sworn affidavit admitting to the identity fraud. We'll need to petition the court for a correction to your birth certificate. Emma's death certificate will need to be amended. The grave marker will need to be changed. That's actually the easiest part, believe it or not." "How long?" I asked. 4 to 6 months if everything goes smoothly. Longer if the state pushes back, which they might. 6 months. Half a year to undo 3 decades of lies. "Let's start," I said. The first step was getting my mother to sign the affidavit. Susan drafted a document that was so clinical, so coldly factual, that reading it made my chest hurt. Catherine N. Richardson hereby swears under penalty of perjury that on or about August 20th, 1993, she deliberately misidentified her surviving infant daughter Lily Marie Richardson as her deceased infant daughter Emma Catherine Richardson. It went on for 3 pages. Every detail documented. Every lie enumerated. I drove to my mother's house on a Tuesday evening. I hadn't seen her since the day I discovered the truth. 6 weeks of silence. She looked smaller somehow when she opened the door. Thinner. There were new lines around her eyes. "Lily," she said, and I heard her voice catch on my real name. Like it hurt to say. "Good. I need you to sign this." I held out the document. My lawyer prepared it. "Read it, sign it, get it notarized. We need it by Friday." She took the papers with shaking hands. I watched her read, watched her face crumple as she worked through each paragraph of her own documented deception. "This makes me sound like a monster," she whispered. "It makes you sound like what you are," I said. "Someone who committed identity fraud on her own child." "That's not editorializing. That's fact." "Lily, please." "Sign it," I interrupted. "That's all I need from you right now. Your signature. Your admission. The rest we can deal with later. Or never. I haven't decided yet." She looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. "I know I don't have the right to ask, but are you okay? Are you eating? Sleeping?" The concern in her voice made something twist in my stomach. I hated that I still cared that she cared. "I'm fine," I lied. "Sign the papers, Mom." She did. Right there at her kitchen table, with me watching. Her signature looked shaky, but it was legible. Legal. "I'll get it notarized tomorrow," she said quietly. "I'll have it to your lawyer by Thursday." "Good." I turned to leave. "Lily?" Her voice stopped me at the door. "I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything. I know it doesn't make any of this okay. But I need you to know that I'm sorry. Every single day, I'm sorry." I didn't turn around. "So am I." I walked out into the cool evening air and sat in my car for 10 minutes before I could trust myself to drive. My hands were shaking. Not with anger this time, but with something else. Something that felt almost like grief. Because seeing her sign that paper, watching her admit in legal writing what she'd done, it made it all real in a way that felt final. There was no going back now. No pretending this was all a misunderstanding or a nightmare I'd wake up from. My mother had stolen my name, and now I was taking it back. Over the next few weeks, things started to change in small but significant ways. I introduced myself as Lily to new people at work. It felt strange at first, like wearing someone else's clothes. But slowly, it started to feel less like pretending and more like remembering. I updated my email signature. Lily Richardson, not Emma. Ordered new business cards with my real name. Started signing documents with the signature I was teaching myself, the L of Lily instead of the E of Emma. My coworker Marcus noticed. "Did you change your name?" he asked one afternoon as we shelved returns in the archive stacks. "Changed it back," I corrected. "Long story. Family stuff." He nodded like he understood, even though he couldn't possibly. "Lily suits you better anyway." I didn't know if that was true, but it felt true, which was something. I also started going to therapy. Dr. Patricia Williams, a specialist in family trauma and identity issues. Twice a week, I sat in her office with its too soft couch and box of tissues that always felt judgmental, and I talked about twins I didn't remember and mothers who loved too much in all the wrong ways. "You're grieving multiple losses," Dr. Williams explained during our third session. "You're grieving your sister, yes. But you're also grieving the life you thought you had. The identity you thought was yours. Even the relationship with your mother that was built on a foundation you now know is false. Can you grieve something you never actually had?" I asked. "Absolutely," she said. "In fact, that's often the hardest kind of grief. Because there's no body to bury. No clear ending point. Just the slow realization that what you thought was real never existed in the first place." That stuck with me. The idea that I was mourning a person who never existed, Emma Richardson, only child, daughter of Catherine, archivist, 32 years old. That person was a fiction. A composite of my lived experience and my mother's desperate lies. I was Lily. I'd always been Lily. But I'd spent my entire life not knowing it. How do you reconcile that? The answer, I was learning, was slowly. Painfully. One small choice at a time. I started reclaiming pieces of myself. Small things at first. I bought a new journal and wrote Lily's journal on the first page. I changed my coffee order. Emma had always gotten lattes, but I realized I actually preferred cappuccinos. Did Emma like lattes? Or had I just convinced myself I did because that's what my mother ordered? These questions kept me up at night. I also went back to Riverview Cemetery. This time I brought flowers. White roses, because I didn't know what Emma's favorite flower had been. Maybe my mother knew. I'd have to ask her someday. When I was ready to have that conversation, I stood at the grave with the wrong name and whispered, "I'm going to fix this. I promise. You're going to have your name back. We both are." The wind rustled through the bare cherry tree branches. It sounded like an answer. By the end of that first month and a half, I wasn't okay. Not even close. But I was breathing, functioning, putting one foot in front of the other and slowly building a life that felt like mine instead of a borrowed copy of someone else's. I was learning to be Lily, the real Lily. Not the ghost my mother had tried to erase, but the person I'd been all along beneath the wrong name. It wasn't easy. Some days it felt impossible. But every time I signed my real name, every time someone called me Lily and I answered without hesitation, I felt something shift inside me. I was coming back to myself. Or maybe I was becoming myself for the first time. I wasn't sure there was a difference. For months after I found the photograph, the court order came through. I was sitting at my kitchen table when Susan called, her voice carrying that particular brand of satisfaction that lawyers get when bureaucracy finally works in their favor. "It's done," she said. "The judge signed off on everything. Your birth certificate correction is being processed. Emma's death certificate has been amended. You're officially Lily Marie Richardson." I should have felt elated, vindicated. Instead, I felt hollowed out. Like I'd been fighting so hard for so long that I'd forgotten what it would feel like to win. "Thank you," I managed to say. "The corrected birth certificate should arrive in 2 to 3 weeks. I'll have my office send over all the supporting documentation. You'll need to update Social Security, driver's license, passport, all the usual." All the usual. as if people regularly had to prove they were actually themselves. And the grave marker? I asked. The cemetery confirmed they'll replace it within the month. Your mother approved the new inscription. My mother. We'd spoken exactly 3 times in 4 months. Always brief. Always about logistics. She'd signed whatever needed signing, provided whatever documentation was required, and respected my request for space. I hated that I missed her. After I hung up with Susan, I sat in my apartment and let the reality sink in. I was Lily now. Officially. Legally. Irrevocably. The person I'd been for 32 years no longer existed on paper. It should have felt like freedom. Instead, it felt like amputation. Over the following weeks, I went through the tedious process of updating every aspect of my legal identity. The Social Security office, the DMV, my bank, my employer. Each time I handed over the court order and watched a clerk type my real name into their system, I felt another thread connecting me to my old life Snap and Fray. At work, people adjusted faster than I expected. Lily became natural in their mouths within days. If anyone thought it was strange, they kept it to themselves. Marcus started bringing me cappuccinos instead of lattes without me having to ask. Small kindness that made my throat tight. But the biggest shift happened internally. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, I started to feel different. Not like I was becoming someone new, but like I was finally growing into a self that had been waiting for me all along. I started making different choices. Small ones at first. I'd always hated my apartment, too dark, too cramped, but Emma had convinced herself it was cozy. Lily didn't want cozy. Lily wanted windows. Space. Light. I found a new place in Northwest Portland, a studio with huge windows overlooking a tree-lined street. It cost more than I should spend, but when I stood in the empty space and felt actual sunlight on my face, something in me settled. I moved in 6 months after finding the photograph. It felt symbolic, deliberate, a line drawn between before and after. I also changed my hair. I'd worn it long my entire life, almost to my waist, because my mother always said Emma had beautiful hair and it was a shame to cut it. The day I got my new driver's license with Lily Richardson printed on it, I walked into a salon and told them to take off 10 inches. The stylist raised her eyebrows. You sure? Completely. I watched in the mirror as long pieces fell away. When she finished, my hair just brushed my shoulders. I looked different. Lighter. Like I'd shed something heavy I'd been carrying without realizing it. What do you think? The stylist asked. I met my own eyes in the mirror. I think I look like myself. That night, I went out with coworkers for the first time in months. A new bar had opened downtown, one of those places with exposed brick and Edison bulbs that Portland loves. Marcus brought his partner, and Sarah from cataloging brought her wife, and they all called me Lily without hesitation. We talked about normal things. A difficult patron who'd insisted we were hiding books from him. The upcoming budget cuts. Marcus's partner's terrible jokes. No one asked about the name change. No one treated me like I was fragile. For the first time since the photograph, I felt like a person instead of a problem. Around the 7-month mark, I ran into someone from my past. Ashley Martin, high school friend I hadn't seen in over a decade. We literally bumped into each other at a coffee shop, both reaching for the cream at the same time. Oh my God, Emma, she squealed, pulling me into a hug before I could react. I stiffened. The name felt wrong now. Like wearing shoes that didn't fit. Actually, I said, pulling back gently, I go by Lily now. She blinked. Oh, sorry, did you, change it legally? Is this a whole thing? It's complicated, I said. Family stuff. But yeah, it's legal. I'm Lily. Cool. She nodded enthusiastically, clearly not understanding, but polite enough not to press. Lily suits you. You look amazing, by the way. Did you do something different? I touched my shorter hair. Just finally figuring out who I am, I guess. We exchanged numbers and promised to get lunch. One of those promises people make when they run into old friends that usually means nothing. But a week later, she actually texted. We met for Vietnamese food in Southeast Portland, and I told her the abbreviated version of the story. Just enough truth to make sense. That's insane, she said, setting down her spring roll. Like, actual insane. Your mom just switched you. She was grieving, I heard myself say. Surprised that I was defending her. She made a terrible choice. But she was in pain. Still, Ashley said. That's heavy. How are you doing with it all? I thought about it. Really thought. Better than I was. Some days are still hard. But I'm starting to feel like I'm living my own life instead of someone else's. Good, she said firmly. Because you deserve that. Everyone deserves to be themselves. Simple words. But they lodged somewhere in my chest and stayed there. By month 8, I'd built something resembling a life. Not the life I'd planned back when I thought I was Emma. Something different. Something mine. I joined a book club, not my mother's book club, obviously, but one I found through the library. A mix of people from different backgrounds who met monthly to argue about fiction and drink too much wine. I started rock climbing at a gym near my new apartment. My body felt different when I climbed, stronger, more capable, like I was learning what it could do instead of assuming its limitations. I even went on a few dates. Nothing serious. But the act of introducing myself as Lily, of telling my story in careful, curated pieces, felt like practice. Practice at being honest. Practice at being whole. Dr. Williams noticed the change in our sessions. You seem more settled, she observed one Thursday afternoon. I feel more settled, I admitted. Not all the time, but more than before. Have you thought about reaching out to your mother? The question made my stomach clench. She texts me sometimes. Birthday. Holidays. Random Tuesdays. I usually respond. Short stuff. Nothing real. What would real look like? I stared at the ceiling of her office, at the water stain that looked vaguely like a map of South America. I don't know. Forgiveness? Understanding? Those feel impossible right now. They don't have to be goals, Dr. Williams said gently. Connection doesn't require forgiveness. It just requires willingness to sit with discomfort. I thought about that for the rest of the week. About the difference between forgiveness and connection. About whether I could have a relationship with my mother that acknowledged the damage without requiring me to absolve her of it. 9 months after the photograph, I finally went back to the cemetery. The new headstone had been installed. Simple gray granite, exactly like the old one, but with the truth carved into it. Emma Catherine Richardson, March 15, 1993 to August 14, 1993, forever our angel. I knelt in the grass, dry this time, summer sun warming my back, and traced my sister's real name with my fingers. There you are, I whispered. Finally where you should be. The weight I'd been carrying since I found the photograph lifted slightly. Not gone, but lighter. I was Lily. She was Emma. We were both exactly who we'd always been. And for the first time since discovering the truth, that felt like enough. My mother showed up at my apartment on a Tuesday evening in late October, almost exactly 10 months after I'd found the photograph. I was making dinner, pasta with garlic and olive oil, nothing fancy, when the buzzer rang. Lily? Her voice crackled through the intercom. It's me. Can we talk? My hand froze on the button. We'd maintained our careful distance, our polite text exchanges about logistics and legal documents. But we hadn't been face-to-face since the day she signed the affidavit. Since I'd walked out of her house and left her crying at her kitchen table. Part of me wanted to tell her to leave. To maintain the safe boundaries I'd built around my new life. But a larger part, the part that Dr. Williams had been gently pushing me toward for months, knew this conversation was inevitable. You can't rebuild yourself while leaving fundamental relationships in ruins. Eventually, you have to decide, repair or release. I buzzed her in. She looked older when I opened the door. More gray in her hair. Thinner. She carried a canvas bag that I recognized from my childhood. She used to pack my lunch in it for school trips. Thank you for seeing me, she said quietly. I stepped aside to let her in. She looked around my new apartment with careful attention, taking in the sunlight, the bare walls I hadn't gotten around to decorating, the boxes I still hadn't unpacked in the corner. It's nice, she said. Bright. You always loved bright spaces, even as a baby. The casual reference to my infancy made something twist in my chest. Which baby was she remembering? Lily? Or Emma? Did she even know anymore? What do you want, Mom? I asked, not unkindly but not warmly either. She set the canvas bag on my counter. I brought some things. Things I should have given you a long time ago. She started pulling items out. A small photo album I'd never seen before. A baby blanket, yellow, soft, with white stars. A stuffed giraffe with one ear slightly chewed. And the silver bracelet with Lily engraved on it. My original bracelet, the one from the photograph. These were yours, she said. Your actual things, not Emma's. After I switched everything, I packed these away. Told myself I'd get rid of them, but I couldn't. I've kept them in my attic for 32 years. I picked up the photo album with shaking hands. Inside were pictures I'd never seen. 2 babies in matching onesies, one pink, one purple. My mother looking exhausted but radiant, holding both of us. My father, younger than I remembered him, looking terrified and proud simultaneously. And dozens of photos of us together. Emma and Lily. 2 separate people. You were wearing purple the day of the photograph, my mother said softly, pointing to one picture. Emma was always in pink. That's how I told you apart at first. Later, Emma had a small birthmark on her left shoulder. You didn't. I looked up at her confused. You could tell us apart? Of course I could, she said, and there was something almost offended in her tone. You were my daughters. Emma was louder, more demanding. You were quieter, more observant. Emma would cry when she was hungry. You'd just stare at me until I figured it out. You were different people from the moment you were born. Then how could you, my voice broke. How could you just swap us like we were interchangeable? My mother's face crumpled. She gripped the edge of my counter like she needed it to stay upright. Because Emma was the one I was supposed to protect and I failed. She died on my watch, not literally, but that's how it felt. I was her mother, and I let her die. And I couldn't admit that. Not to your father, not to my mother, not to anyone. So I told myself it didn't matter which name you had. That you were both my daughters, and I loved you both equally. But it did matter, I said. I mattered. Lily mattered. You erased me. I know. Tears were streaming down her face now. God, Lily, I know. I've known for 32 years. Every birthday, every Christmas, every time I called you Emma, I knew I was lying. I knew I was stealing your identity. But I didn't know how to stop. The longer it went on, the more impossible it seemed to tell the truth. She sank into one of my kitchen chairs, her whole body shaking with sobs. I don't expect you to forgive me, she continued, her voice raw. I don't even want you to. What I did was unforgivable. I know that. But I need you to understand that I didn't do it because I didn't love you. I did it because I loved you too much in the worst possible way. I couldn't lose both of you. So I tried to keep both of you by making you into her. I stood there holding the photo album, looking at pictures of 2 babies who should have grown up together but didn't. One dead. One forced to live a dead girl's life. Do you know what the worst part is? I asked quietly. She looked up at me, her face destroyed. The worst part is that I understand, I said. I hate that I understand. I hate that part of me knows exactly how someone could make a choice like that in a moment of unbearable grief. But understanding doesn't make it okay. It doesn't undo 32 years of lies. I know. And I can't just hug you and tell you it's all fine now. Because it's not fine. I don't know if it will ever be fine. I know, she whispered again. I set the album down and looked at my mother, really looked at her for the first time in months. She looked broken. Small. Nothing like the antagonist I'd built her into in my head during those first angry weeks. She looked like what she was, a woman who'd made an impossible choice and spent 3 decades living with the consequences. I need you to leave, I said finally. Not angry, just tired. She nodded, standing slowly. Okay, I understand. She moved toward the door, then paused. Lily, the things in the bag, they're yours. I should have given them to you years ago. Decades ago. But I'm giving them to you now. Whatever you want to do with them, keep them, throw them away, burn them, that's your choice. Everything from here on out is your choice. After she left, I sat on my couch surrounded by artifacts of my real childhood. The photo album, the blanket, the giraffe, my bracelet. And I realized something that Dr. Williams had been trying to tell me for months. My mother wasn't the villain of the story. She was just another casualty of it. Another person damaged by the same tragedy that had defined my entire existence. Emma died. My mother broke. I got lost. And now, finally, all three of us had the right names on our stories. I picked up my phone. My fingers hovered over my mother's contact for a long moment. Then I typed, "Thank you for the photos. I'm not ready to see you regularly. But maybe someday we can have coffee. Just coffee. Nothing heavy." Her response came 30 seconds later. "Whenever you're ready. I'll wait as long as it takes." I set the phone down and looked at the photograph from the album, the one of both of us as babies, pressed cheek to cheek, our tiny hands intertwined. Emma and Lily. Sisters. Twins. Two people who deserve to be remembered accurately. I wasn't ready to forgive my mother. Maybe I never would be. But I was ready to stop seeing her as the enemy and start seeing her as what she actually was, a human being who made catastrophic mistakes while trying to survive unbearable pain. That didn't make what she did right, but it made it comprehensible. And comprehension, I was learning, was the first step towards something that might eventually look like peace. 1 year after I found the photograph, I did something I hadn't done since I was a child. I celebrated my birthday. Not the birthday I'd always celebrated, March 15th, when both Emma and I were born, but August 14th, the day Emma died, the day I became the only twin, the day that, in a twisted way, was my real beginning as Lily. It felt wrong at first, the idea of marking that date as anything other than tragedy. But Dr. Williams had suggested it during one of our sessions. "You've spent a year reclaiming your identity," she'd said. "But you're still organizing your life around your sister's death as if it's only a loss. What if you also acknowledged it as the moment you became singular? Fully yourself, not half of a pair." "That feels cruel," I'd argued. "Like I'm celebrating that she died." "You're not celebrating her death," Dr. Williams had corrected gently. "You're acknowledging your survival. There's a difference." So on August 14th, a sunny Thursday that felt too beautiful for such a weighted date, I took the day off work. I made myself breakfast. Real breakfast, not the granola bar I usually ate while checking emails. Scrambled eggs, toast, fresh strawberries. I ate slowly, sitting at my small kitchen table, watching the morning light paint patterns across my walls. Then I drove to Riverview Cemetery. I'd been back several times since Emma's headstone was corrected, but never on this specific date. Today felt different. Significant. I brought 2 bouquets, white roses for Emma, purple irises for Lily. For me. The cherry tree was full of leaves now, creating dappled shade over the small grave. I knelt in the grass and placed the roses against Emma's stone. "Happy birthday," I said softly. "We would have been 32 today. Both of us. I wonder what you'd be like. If you'd be an archivist too, or something completely different. If we'd be close, or if we'd drive each other crazy the way siblings do." The wind rustled through the leaves. No answers. Just the peaceful silence of a place where questions don't need responses. "I'm okay now," I continued. "Not perfect. Not healed. But okay. I have my name back. My real name. And I'm learning how to be just Lily, not Lily and Emma or Lily who should have been Emma. Just me." I placed the purple irises next to the white roses. "For both of us. I think I'm going to forgive Mom eventually," I said. "Not today. Maybe not next year. But eventually. Because holding on to this anger is like carrying you around with me everywhere, and that's not fair to either of us. You should get to rest. And I should get to live." I sat there for a long time, just breathing in the summer air and watching butterflies dance between the headstones. For the first time since finding that photograph, I didn't feel like half of something missing. I felt whole. Singular. Myself. When I finally left the cemetery, I drove to a tattoo parlor in Northeast Portland. I'd made an appointment weeks ago, but almost canceled it 3 times. The artist was a woman named Kai, covered in intricate designs that told stories I couldn't fully read. She looked at the sketch I'd brought, 2 intertwined cherry blossom branches, and nodded approvingly. "Where do you want it?" "My left shoulder blade," I said. Where Emma's birthmark had been. Where mine wasn't. It hurt. The needle felt like being written on, like having a story permanently pressed into skin. But pain, I'd learned, could be transformative. Pain could mean something other than damage. When Kai held up the mirror so I could see the finished piece, I felt tears prick my eyes. 2 branches, separate but growing from the same root. Cherry blossoms for the tree over Emma's grave, blooming on both. "It's perfect," I whispered. That evening, I met my book club for drinks. They'd insisted on taking me out when they learned it was my birthday, even though I'd never mentioned August 14th to them before. "To Lily," Marcus said, raising his glass. 32 years of being awesome, and hopefully at least 32 more. We clinked glasses. I looked around the table at these people who knew me as Lily, only Lily, always Lily, and felt something settle in my chest. This was my life. Not the one I'd planned. Not the one my mother had constructed. But mine. Later that night, back in my apartment, I pulled out the photo album my mother had given me. I'd looked through it dozens of times over the past few months, but tonight I did something new. I took one of the photos, Emma and me as babies, our tiny hands clasped together, and I framed it. I hung it on my wall. Not hidden. Not packed away. Just there, visible, acknowledged. My sister existed. She'd been real. And so was I. I pulled out my phone and opened a text thread I'd been avoiding for weeks. My mother. We'd exchanged a few messages since that day in my apartment, but nothing substantial. Nothing real. I typed, "I had a good birthday today." Both of my birthdays, actually. "I think I'm ready for that coffee. Next week? Wednesday?" Her response came almost immediately. "I'd love that. Name the place and time. I'll be there." I set the phone down and looked at the photograph on my wall. At the 2 babies who would never know each other as adults. At the life that should have been but never could be. "Thank you," I whispered to my sister's image, "for giving me permission to stop being you and start being me." What I'd learned over this year of unraveling and rebuilding was this: identity isn't just what you're called. It's not the name on your birth certificate or the story people tell about you. It's what you do with the truth once you finally know it. For 32 years, I'd been living someone else's truth. My mother's truth. The truth that said Emma was too precious to lose, even in death, so Lily would have to disappear instead. But truth doesn't work that way. You can bury it, rename it, hide it in attics and between the pages of magazines, but it doesn't disappear. It just waits. Patient and relentless. And when it finally surfaces, you have a choice. Let it destroy you, or let it rebuild you into something more honest than you've ever been. I chose rebuilding. It meant accepting that my mother loved me but also damaged me. That my sister's death shaped my entire life even though I never knew her. That I would always be both the surviving twin and the erased daughter, and that both of those identities could coexist without canceling each other out. It meant understanding that forgiveness isn't forgetting. It's deciding that the person who hurt you gets to be more than the worst thing they did. It meant learning that you can grieve someone you never knew, and that grief doesn't have an expiration date. Most importantly, it meant claiming my name, my real, actual name, not as an act of revenge or anger, but as an act of love. Love for the sister who never got to grow up. Love for the mother who broke trying to hold on to what she'd lost. And love for myself, for the person I'd always been underneath the wrong name. I was Lily Marie Richardson. I'd always been Lily Marie Richardson. And finally, after 32 years of being someone else, I was ready to live as exactly that person. No more pretending. No more substitutions. No more being the replacement for someone who could never be replaced. Just me. Fully. Completely. Honestly. And that felt like the truest birthday gift I could give myself. 2 years after I found the photograph, my life looks nothing like it did before, and everything like it was always meant to. I'm sitting in a coffee shop in Northwest Portland, the kind with mismatched furniture and local art on the walls. My mother sits across from me, both of us nursing cappuccinos. We've learned we both prefer them to lattes, one of many small discoveries we've made during these careful, tentative meetings. We do this now. Coffee every other Wednesday. Sometimes we talk about heavy things. More often, we talk about nothing at all. Books she's reading. Renovations at the library. The weather. The comfortable smallness of ordinary conversation. How's the new project going, she asks, and I can hear the genuine interest in her voice. Not the performative kind, but the real kind. We're learning the difference. Good, I say. We're digitizing the city's historical photo archives. Thousands of images from the early 1900s. It's painstaking work, but I love it. She smiles. It doesn't reach her eyes the way it used to. There's a permanent sadness there now, a grief she's stopped trying to hide. But it's genuine. You always did love old photographs. The irony of that statement hangs between us for a moment. Then we both laugh, a little darkly, because some things are so painful they circle back around to funny. This is what forgiveness looks like, I've learned. Not forgetting. Not pretending the damage didn't happen. Just deciding that the person who hurt you gets to be complex. Gets to be human. Gets to sit across from you at a coffee shop and make inadvertently ironic comments about photographs. My mother and I will never have the relationship we had before. That relationship was built on a foundation of lies, and you can't rebuild on rotten wood. But we're building something new. Slower. More careful. With truth as the foundation this time, however uncomfortable that truth might be. She asks about my life, my real life, not the safe surface details. I tell her about the climbing gym, about the book club, about Marcus, who's become one of my closest friends. I tell her I'm thinking about adopting a cat, that I've been on a few more dates, nothing serious, but I'm learning what I want. What Lily wants, not what Emma would have wanted. She listens. Really listens. And when she talks about her own life, I listen too. She's in therapy now, has been for over a year. She talks about the work she's doing, the guilt she's learning to live with, the daughter she's learning to grieve properly after 3 decades of improper mourning. I went to Emma's grave last week, she says softly. I brought irises. Purple ones. For you. For Lily. I thought maybe she'd want flowers from her sister, not just from me. My throat gets tight. That's really nice, Mom. I'm trying, she says. I know it doesn't fix anything, but I'm trying. I know. We finish our coffee. Hug briefly at the door, still awkward, still careful, but warmer than it was 6 months ago. She drives away in her sensible sedan, and I walk back to my apartment through the crisp autumn air. The apartment is different now. I've finally decorated. Real art on the walls, including that framed photograph of Emma and me. Plants on the windowsills that I've somehow managed not to kill. A cat tree I bought in hopeful preparation for the adoption that should be finalized next month. I have dinner plans tonight with Ashley, who's become a Real friend again after years of Facebook-only contact. Tomorrow, I'm climbing with Marcus. This weekend, my book club is doing a hike and wine tasting combo that sounds either amazing or disastrous. This is my life now. Lily's life. Full and complicated and mine. Sometimes I still catch myself in the mirror and think about Emma. Wonder what she'd look like. If we'd still be identical or if 32 years would have made us different. If she'd have my same gray hairs starting at the temples. If she'd need reading glasses like I do now. But those thoughts don't hurt the way they used to. They're just questions without answers, and I've made peace with that. I've also made peace with the fact that I'll never fully know how much of me is actually me, and how much is shaped by living my sister's life. Do I like cappuccinos because Lily likes them, or because Emma would have? Does it matter? Dr. Williams says no. That I am whoever I am now, regardless of how I got here. That identity is about the present tense, not the past tense. I think she's right. Last week, I went back to Riverview Cemetery. Not on any significant date, just a random Tuesday afternoon when I had some time. I brought flowers for Emma, purple irises like always. And I sat by her grave and told her about my life. About the cat I'm adopting. About the guy I went on 3 dates with who was perfectly nice, but didn't spark anything. About the promotion I'm up for at work. I talked to her like a sister. Like the relationship we never got to have might still exist in some small way. I hope you'd be proud of me, I said to the headstone. I hope you'd think I'm doing okay with this life we're sharing. Because that's what it feels like sometimes, like I'm living for both of us. Making choices you never got to make. And I want to do right by both of us. The cherry tree rustled overhead. Still no answers. But somehow, the silence felt less empty. When I got home that day, I found an email from a genealogy website I'd signed up for months ago on a whim. DNA testing results. I'd submitted a sample mostly out of curiosity to see if there were any relatives I didn't know about. The results showed what I expected: my mother's DNA, Markers from my father's side, the standard breakdown of ancestry. But there was a note at the bottom. We've detected markers indicating you may have been a twin. Your DNA contains trace amounts of chimerism, cells from another individual, likely absorbed in utero. This is common in cases where twins share a placenta. I stared at that note for a long time. Emma's cells. Still in me. After all this time. After all this distance. Part of her had always been part of me, on a level more fundamental than names or identities or anyone's lies. We'd never been separate. Not really. Not completely. The thought should have been disturbing. Instead, it felt like the last piece clicking into place. I wasn't living someone else's life. I was living a life that had always been ours. Emma's and mine. Shared in ways neither of us could have chosen, but both of us had to accept. I printed out the DNA results and put them in the photo album with the pictures of us as babies. Another piece of our story. Another truth to hold on to. That night, I opened my journal, the one labeled Lily's Journal, that I'd started 2 years ago. I flipped through pages and pages of processing, grieving, raging, healing. And I wrote, "Today I learned that Emma's cells are still in my body. We're still twins. Still connected. Still sharing this life in ways I never imagined. And I think I finally figured out what that means. I'm not replacing her. I'm not living her life or mine. I'm living our life, the one we would have shared if things had been different. Every choice I make, every breath I take, it's for both of us. And that's not a burden. That's a gift. I'm Lily. I'll always be Lily. But I'm also Emma's sister. Emma's twin. Emma's other half. And those things don't contradict each other. They complete each other. We're okay now. Both of us. Finally. I closed the journal and looked around my apartment, my real apartment, decorated with my real choices, filled with my real life. The life I'd built from the rubble of lies and secrets and impossible grief. It wasn't the life I'd planned. It wasn't the life anyone had planned. But it was real. It was honest. It was mine. And after 32 years of being someone I wasn't, real and honest and mine was more than enough. If you've made it this far in my story, thank you. I know it's heavy. I know it's complicated. I know it probably brought up feelings and questions you weren't expecting when you clicked on this video. But that's why I needed to share it. Because somewhere out there, someone is living a lie they didn't create. Someone is carrying a name that doesn't fit. Someone is being told who they are instead of being allowed to discover it for themselves. And I need you to know, it's never too late to find the truth. It's never too late to become who you actually are. For 32 years, I was Emma Richardson. And Emma Richardson was, by all accounts, a good person. She had friends, a decent job, a mother who loved her. On paper, she was fine. Functional. Normal. But she wasn't real. She was a construction. A story someone else wrote and I unknowingly performed. Lily Richardson, the real me, was buried under that story. Erased. Forgotten. Treated as if she'd never existed at all. Until a single photograph brought her back to life. Here's what I've learned over these past 2 years of unraveling and rebuilding. Your identity matters. Not just what people call you, but who you actually are beneath all the names and stories and expectations. That core self that exists independent of what anyone else needs you to be. And sometimes, finding that self means burning down everything you thought you knew about your life. It means confronting the people who love you and telling them they're wrong. It means choosing truth over comfort, even when comfort feels so much safer. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. And the most important. My relationship with my mother will never be what it was. But it's more honest now. Built on truth instead of protection. On reality instead of fantasy. And surprisingly, that makes it stronger. Not easier. Not painless. But stronger. My relationship with my sister, with Emma, exists in a way I never expected. She's not just a grave I visit or a name on a headstone. She's in my DNA. Part of my cellular structure. We're still twins, still connected, just in a way neither of us chose, but both of us have to honor. And my relationship with myself, with Lily, is finally what it should be. I know who I am. Not who I was told to be. Not who someone else needed me to be. But who I actually am. It took 32 years and a devastating truth to get here. But I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere. So if you're watching this and you're carrying someone else's story, someone else's name, someone else's expectations, I want you to know it's okay to put them down. It's okay to say, this isn't mine, and walk away from it. It's okay to disappoint people in service of being honest with yourself. Your identity belongs to you. Your name belongs to you. Your life belongs to you. Don't let anyone, even people who love you, even people with good intentions, take that away. And if someone already has, know that you can take it back. It won't be easy. It might cost you relationships and comfort and the safety of familiar lies. But on the other side of that loss is something invaluable, the truth. And the person you actually are when you're living it. I'm Lily Richardson. I was born March 15, 1993, 4 minutes after my identical twin sister Emma. She died when we were 5 months old, and my mother, drowning in grief, made a choice that changed both our lives forever. She gave me Emma's name and tried to erase mine. For 3 decades, it worked. I believed the lie because I had no reason not to. But the truth was always there, waiting. In a photograph tucked between magazine pages. In bracelets sewn inside stuffed animals. In DNA results that showed my sister's cells still living in my body. The truth is patient. It can wait decades. Lifetimes, even. But eventually, it surfaces. And when it does, you have to decide what to do with it. I chose to honor it. To rebuild my life around it. To become the person I'd always been but never been allowed to be. It's been 2 years now. 2 years of Lily. And I can finally say, I'm happy. Not perfectly healed. Not without scars. But happy. Living my life, my real, honest, complicated life on my own terms. That's what I want for you too. Whatever truth you're carrying, whatever identity you've been denied or forced into or convinced isn't real, I want you to claim it. Own it. Build your life around it, no matter how difficult that process might be. You deserve to be exactly who you are. Nothing more. Nothing less. Just you. Fully. Honestly. Courageously. So here's what I want you to do. Take a moment and think about your own story. Is there something you've been hiding, even from yourself? A truth you've been too afraid to face? A name, literal or figurative, that doesn't fit? Leave a comment and tell me, what's the moment you chose yourself? When did you decide that being honest mattered more than being comfortable? Or if you're still waiting for that moment, what's stopping you? I read every comment. Your stories matter to me. They might matter to someone else who needs to hear them too. And if this story resonated with you, if it touched something in you that needed touching, do me a favor, hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. I'm going to keep sharing stories like this, real, raw, complicated stories about identity and family and the lies we tell ourselves to survive. Leave suggestions in the comments for what you'd like me to talk about next. What stories need telling? What truths need speaking? Thank you for listening. Thank you for staying with me through this entire journey. Thank you for witnessing my story and, in doing so, making it real in a way it never was before. I'm Lily Richardson. I'm a twin, a daughter, an archivist, a survivor of identity theft committed with love instead of malice. I'm all of these things and more. But most importantly, I'm me. Finally, fully, honestly me. And I hope you're on your way to being you too. Take care of yourselves. Be kind to yourselves. And remember, the truth might hurt, but lies hurt worse. They just hurt slower, quieter, in ways you don't notice until you realize you've spent your entire life living someone else's story. Don't let that be you. Choose yourself. Choose truth. Choose the life that's actually yours. You won't regret it. See you in the next video.